Hi, boys and girls. It's Teacher Jamal, also known as Teacher Jamal. I'm back here with you for another lesson. Before we get started, I had a couple quick questions for you guys. Have you ever been in a storm? No, I mean a really bad storm. A storm where you may need an umbrella? What about a storm where you may need a jacket because it's cold? Well, there's also some other storms that have nothing to do with weather. Storms where you don't need an umbrella, storms where you don't need a jacket, storms where all you need is Jesus. That's right, Jesus. Today we're going to talk about Apostle Paul in Acts chapter 27, verses 1 through chapter 28, verses 10. Now, Apostle Paul loved Jesus, loved him a lot, always loved to talk about him, always loved to teach about him. But it wasn't always that way. At one point in time, Apostle Paul wanted to deny and stop anyone who else wanted to worship God, who wanted to learn about Jesus, and who wanted to love Jesus. He just wasn't having it until one day Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus. And at that moment in time, Paul knew he wasn't thinking right, he wasn't talking right, he wasn't living right. And so from there on, he knew he had to teach about Jesus. He had to make sure everyone knew about Jesus. He had to spread the word of Jesus. Now, that wasn't always a popular thing to do. So he was beaten, he was talked about, and he was even thrown in jail. Not once, not twice, but quite often. Once when he was in jail in Jerusalem, Jesus appeared to him. And Jesus told him, be courageous. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Now, he didn't tell Paul that because Paul was about to go to a pizza party with his friends and eat cake. He told them that because he knew trouble was coming. Hard times were coming. Storms were coming. So after being in jail, Paul was ordered to go and stand trial in front of Caesar, all the way in Rome. Now, at this point in time, Paul is in Jerusalem, and he has to go all the way to Rome, and he has to do it by boat. Now, I've never been on a boat from Jerusalem to Rome, but it is a very, very long way, like 25 to 30 days in a boat. So they got on this boat, and this was not a fun boat ride. There was lots of storms. The boat would go back and forth, and I can imagine there were a lot of people getting sick. Paul sometimes warned them, hey, we shouldn't go this way, or hey, we shouldn't do this. But they didn't listen to Paul, because to them, he was just this guy who loved Jesus and he was a prisoner. But they had more storms coming, almost like hurricanes, where they would go back and forth. Everyone was scared. Everyone was nervous. These storms lasted for weeks and weeks and weeks. Finally, they got to a point where they crashed onto a shore, and they met a group of people from a place called Malta. These people were nice. These people were friendly. They welcomed Paul. They welcomed the prisoners. They welcomed the guards onto their land. Paul sat and ate with them. He just got off a boat. He was just in prison. They just went through storms. While he was sitting, he was eating and talking. He was bitten by a viper snake. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a viper snake has long fangs and sometimes poisonous. They didn't believe Paul would make it. They start talking, hey, this guy doesn't know anything about some Jesus. This guy is not, loved by anybody else. He's about to die from a snake bite. But Paul got the snake and shook it off of his hand. And people looked and they were amazed. They were like, wow, did you see that? This guy must be something. This guy must be loved by someone. From that point on, the people in the area of Malta, they start bringing everybody there who was sick, who was hurt, to get healed. Paul healed them. Not because Paul was super amazing, but because Paul had Jesus with him. And Paul had the love of Jesus in his heart. So he went on to Rome. And from that point on, people allowed Paul to preach. They allowed him to talk. He would always still go through trouble, always still go through trials, always still go through storms. But one thing he did when he went through these trials, these troubles and these storms, is he knew he had Jesus. And I'm here to tell you today that you're going to go through some troubles. You're going to go through some trials. You're going to go through some storms. But if you have Jesus in your life, you're going to get through them. You're going to be fine. And at the end of it, you can look back and you can say, wow, look what I was able to do with Jesus in my life.